So SHAZAM is the 7th film in the DCEU, and the 6th DCEU film that I'm reviewing leading up to Birds of Prey. You may be wondering, why'd you skip Aquaman? Because I don't want to talk about Aquaman. It isn't good. It's just Jason Momoa and CGI underwater fish people. You know what? Fuck it. This is now a review of Aquaman. So after Justice League, they decided to make Aquaman because Jason Momoa's hot and they knew he'd make them money. In this movie's defense, it's definitely entertaining. Some of the underwater fights look pretty cool. At times, the CGI looks fantastic. Jason Momoa is a monster of a man, and to get this ripped, it takes a lot of work. Henry Cavill? Nah. This is the real Man of Steel. Amber Heard's hot too. I respect it. Willem Dafoe's in it. That's always a huge plus in a movie. But with all that said, it's still pretty fucking bad. I'd put it right up with Wonder Woman. It's one of the better DCEU films, but that's really not saying much. Like, of course, they just have to include Child Aquaman, because, well, it's a DC origin film. This movie actually gets multiple child actors to play different ages of Aquaman, and they're all really bad.
Does she not love me?
This kid looks like he took line delivery lessons straight from Mark Wahlberg himself.
No, man, we're not.
Are you saying they executed her? Because she had me?
What? No!
Then we are force-fed awful exposition from Willem Dafoe for just so long. Seriously, I'm convinced that the only reason he's in this movie is to read bad exposition.
The lost trident of Atlan.
Oh, I know the story.
It's more than a story. It's real. It was forged by the greatest weapon masters in history.
He said he knew the story. Why are you still telling him the story? Oh, good. It's finally over.
So what happened to it?
To know that is to go back to the time before the Great Fall, when King Atlan ruled over.
How much more of this do we have? Does anybody really fucking care?
You can talk underwater? Hey, I can talk underwater too! This is awesome!
Oh, we can do more than just talk.
So, King Orm wants to start a war with human beings because they litter in the ocean, but plot twist, it was just Jason Momoa from one movie ago. And of course, the same stupid badass trope is used again and again in this movie, where they've got to overcompensate for the stupid character by making him this ultimate badass, but no matter how hard they try, it just makes him look dumber. He's a man who can breathe underwater and talk to fish. Oh, and yet again, they make him, like, invincible. How am I supposed to keep caring about all these heroes when none of them ever take any kind of damage? This movie's super corny, too. And that part I really like. I like it because it's funny. Now, I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but I'll take it as a positive because it makes me laugh. Like, every time a villain introduces himself, they feel the need to loudly announce their name.
Call me Black Manta.
Call me Ocean Master.
It's fucking hilarious. Then there's all this other stupid shit, like things just randomly exploding all the time. Oh, and Nicole Kidman eats a fish. Ha ha, it's funny. It's like that scene in Venom when he eats the lobster, but in Venom, it was actually done much better and it was funnier. Because Tom Hardy was really dedicated to that role, and that scene was actually entirely improvised. You know what? This is now just a review of Venom. Venom is a 2018 Marvel Sony movie and another dumb superhero film. Still much better than this DCEU schlock. Pretty much the movie's at its strongest when Eddie and Venom are interacting with each other. My favorite scene has to be this one, where he promises not to touch anything.
Please, just go in. Don't touch anything.
And then 30 seconds later, he's fucking touching everything. Oh, I'm getting sidetracked. Where was I? Oh yeah, SHAZAM! This movie's great. No joke. I think it's fucking fantastic. It's not perfect, but hey, I wasn't even expecting this to be good. It's easily the best DCEU film by far. It's honestly the only movie in the DCEU that I'd give a positive score. It's about a kid who can transform into a grown superhero after he says the name SHAZAM. Imagine Big meets Superman, and that's exactly what SHAZAM is. Most of the time, it pretty much maintains a campy, cheesy tone, which really works for this movie. It isn't fabricated campiness like Suicide Squad or Justice League. This legitimately gave me vibes of like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy in a way. It also includes elements that reminded me of Deadpool, but it never actually felt like a ripoff of either one of those movies. This definitely had its own identity, and apart from a few shoehorned references to Batman and Superman, it feels like it could stand on its own completely. Starting off with the story, the first third of this movie is where it's kind of dull for me. Nothing really happens. We're introduced to the main villain of the movie, who's about as interesting as a fucking pencil. Clearly the first act is where you want to dump all the boring shit so the movie can pick back up in the next 2 acts and leave the audience feeling satisfied. As soon as he becomes Shazam, the movie becomes great. I just love how they don't make him act like a hero. He reacts and treats the situation exactly like a 12-year-old kid would.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
Benny, look out! Bullet immunity. You have bullet immunity! Shoot him again.
Oh, yeah. Here. Go, both of you. Come on, go to town.
He hands the robber back his gun once he learns that he's invincible. That's comedy gold. We're like 90% of the way through the movie before he actually does something heroic. That's really unique and ballsy to me. It allows for the character growth and takes its time to develop the main hero. It doesn't force feed you all this information with a voiceover in the first 15 minutes. Another thing I love about the story is how it avoids cliches at all costs. Like that scene earlier in the convenience store. Any other superhero movie, he'd take them down right away, but here they make it hilarious. Or like this scene during the final battle, which takes a trope that we see a lot in superhero films like this and turns it on its head.
Enough games, boy. You think a pack of children can...
Wait, what?
Brilliant. So yeah, the humor is clearly in the forefront of this movie, but that doesn't mean it takes away from the dramatic moments. When the movie wants to be emotional, it's actually effective. They don't throw in stupid jokes that compromise the drama in a scene. They let those moments linger for just the right amount of time, and then when it's time for another joke, they sneak it in where you don't expect it.
Say my name.
Billy!
No, not my name. No, say the name that I say to turn into this guy.
As far as the characters go, they're fine for the most part. Zachary Levi as Shazam is easily the best part of the whole film. If I had any issues with him, it's that he's also practically invincible like everyone else. There's nothing he does that couldn't have also been done by Superman, Wonder Woman, or hell, even Aquaman. He can talk to his fish. The reason it doesn't bother me as much here is Zachary Levi. He completely steals the show in every shot he's in. However, there is a good 30 minutes, maybe more, towards the beginning where he isn't even in it. Unfortunately, anytime he's not on screen, the film takes a dip and is significantly less entertaining. I think that's because none of the other characters are interesting enough to carry the film. The kid that plays Billy Batson, he's pretty okay. He does resemble Zachary Levi as far as line delivery goes. I can tell that the two put in a lot of work together in order to feel like the same person, just 20 years apart.
Lay your hands on my staff.
Gross.
Jack Dylan Grazer plays the best friend of Billy, and I think he did fantastic. He plays Eddie in It Chapter 1, which he was also great in, but I think he might be even better here. He's my second favorite actor in the movie next to Zachary Levi. The last character I want to talk about is Dr. Sivana. This is the main villain of the film, played by Mark Strong, and I think he's just a fucking terrible, terrible villain. Full disclosure, it's not Mark Strong's fault at all. The guy's got talent. I think he's great in Kingsman, he's great in Kick-Ass, but here he's given terrible dialogue to work with, and he's the most cliche villain that you can imagine. He's about as interesting as the rest of these fucking villains, but to be fair, I feel like the bad guys usually are the worst part of these superhero movies. I mean, seriously, out of the like 100 comic book movies that I've seen in my life, there's maybe 10 good villains. 4 of them are from Spider-Man movies, 3 of them are from Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, 2 of them are from Avengers movies, and then I guess you can throw in Magneto. But really, that's it. I've heard the phrase, your movie is only as good as your villain, but I kind of disagree. I feel like if the film around your villain is entertaining, it can still get a pass, even with a shitty bad guy. It's happened before, and it can happen again here. The CGI, staying consistent with the rest of the DCEU, the CGI here is nothing special. It's pretty bad sometimes, actually. Like the gargoyle-looking embodiments of the 7 deadly sins just looks like PlayStation 2 cutscenes. Their mouths will move when they growl, but they won't move when they talk.
There is one more powerful. The wizard found his champion.
Lucky for us, these 7 deadly eyesores are the only instance of terrible CGI. They don't have a ginormous, overblown final battle where the good guy and bad guy throw each other through buildings for 45 minutes. They keep it in their budget. And in their skill level, more importantly. If your VFX team is not talented enough to have your hero and villain convincingly throw each other through buildings, maybe have them do some other stuff and keep it smaller scale. So when I say it's nothing special, I mean that in a sense that there's nothing memorably terrible either. They do what they can, and it's good enough. Overall, I feel like SHAZAM is a huge leap in the right direction for the DCEU. It's my favorite film by far in this universe. When comparing it to the other comic book movies of 2019, I liked it more than Spider-Man Far From Home, but not quite as much as Avengers Endgame. I give SHAZAM a B. My next and last DCEU review will be for Birds of Prey. Still haven't seen it. I'm hoping it's like SHAZAM, and it's not like these other movies.